them in Gold League. I mean, there's not a lot that should surprise you. Sometimes these things come up. So I don't think it's one of those things you worry too much if you're 0. It's a best of 5. It's one game. You come back, you regroup, you play to your strengths. I think that 0 has the potential, but eStar, as you said, you might want to start looking to some of the other heroes. I mean, Xingzi, we've seen him play Vala a lot, lately, and sometimes he gets over-aggressive there. Maybe that's a thing, but maybe a different comp. I don't think it was necessarily bad drafting. I think it was just really great execution on the side of eStar.
Yeah, the element of surprise, definitely a big factor there. Well, we're going to get ready for game number 2 in this best of 5 series. Let's see you guys really soon. This is the HGC.
Lucio coming at you.
Since he was a child, Lucio has always believed in using music to bring people together. When the Vishkar Corporation moved in and began to exploit his community, Lucio repurposed the company's sonic technology and used it to lead an uprising. He became an overnight celebrity and started touring the world in sold-out shows to promote positive social change. Now, Lucio fights for justice as he drops the beat around the world and throughout the Nexus. Lucio is a highly mobile support hero who constantly heals or increases the movement speed of all nearby allies. Lucio is able to attack enemies while moving, and his weapon never needs to be reloaded. His trait, Wall Ride, automatically increases his movement speed and allows him to pass through units as long as he's moving next to a wall or structure. Lucio's first ability, Sound Wave, fires a sonic blast that damages and knocks back all enemies in its arc. Crossfade toggles between the 2 songs that Lucio is constantly playing to support himself and nearby allies. Use his Speed Boost song to increase movement speed, or his Healing Boost song to heal. When Lucio uses Amp It Up, the effect of the song he's currently playing is increased for a short period. Healing Boost heals for dramatically more per second, and Speed Boost grants allies even more movement speed. Lucio's first heroic ability, Sound Barrier, works just as it does in Overwatch, providing all nearby teammates with a powerful shield that decays over a short window of time. Reverse Amp is a more offense-oriented heroic. When cast, it applies a negative effect to all nearby enemies. This effect is the opposite of what Lucio's current song does for his allies. If he's playing Speed Boost, all nearby enemies are slowed. If he's playing Healing Boost, all nearby enemies take damage over time. This is in addition to the positive effect each song provides for his own team.
Oh, this is my jam! Pump up the volume!
When Lucio's in the mix, there's never a moment when he isn't playing one of his songs. The key is to know which song to play and when to play it. Use Crossfade to switch between them as the situation demands, keeping your teammates healed when under pressure, or helping them move around the battlefield. Crossfade has no cooldown, so you can toggle between Lucio's 2 songs as often as you require. Be sure to amp it up when your support is needed the most. If you're facing an enemy Lucio, focus fire and burst him down. Lucio's Wall Ride trait, along with his Speed Boost song and Amp It Up, give him amazing mobility. Use the environment to run circles around your enemies and push them toward your allies with Sound Wave. When escaping a battle, Sound Wave can also be used to create space between Lucio and his pursuer. Sound Barrier is a great defensive burst tool that can absorb high amounts of damage for your team. There's a brief delay between when you cast it and when the shields take effect, and the shields themselves only last for a short window of time, so be sure to drop the beat at precisely the right moment. If you choose the reverse amp heroic, keep in mind that its effects are separate from Lucio's normal songs. When you activate reverse amp, Lucio's current song will continue to benefit his allies. Keep in mind that reverse amp doesn't benefit from amp it up in any way. Be sure to continue using Amp It Up to help your team instead of trying to use it to hinder your enemies. Lucio is an electronic musician extraordinaire whose sick beats both empower his team and help drive them to victory.
I'm out. Peace.
Welcome back to the Eastern Clash. We're just going to jump straight into the draft here. We're already underway. Now, obviously, as you can see, Tyrael Greymane on the right side for 0. On the left side, eStar with Zarya, Muradin, and Illidan. I might be a little bit rude here, but the 3 times I've seen Illidan this weekend, I feel like he hasn't been very effective. But the Chinese meta obviously has something on lockdown because we see him over and over from this.
It's something that they definitely have in their repertoire that a lot of other regions don't. You know, it's kind of like the old guard, but Zagara Illidan seems to still be around as we see Malfurion. You know, Trick, one of the things I was trying to point out there in the break that we had in the draft, the last time these guys faced off back at the Gold Club Championship in November, one of these teams picked Cho'Gall, and that team won, and that team was Zero Panda. I'm not sure if they're necessarily set up for it now, but just in case you're excited about crazy drafts in China, then this is one to get excited about.
I mean, I'm full on board for Chinese meta, man. It makes me happy just to watch them play with the different varieties they bring into the mix-ups. This one's looking a little bit more standard here, with Lucio and Vala being picked up. So obviously the Immortal race heavily in the favor of Zero. On the left side, eStar does have engage and chase potential. Now, obviously we might need a little bit more damage and more of a way to open up for kill potential. In the past, it's been Lunara for eStar. And if you get Lunara and a healer here, you can also do pretty well in the Immortal race. Yours is much more delayed, but the amount of poison you can spread on your opponent is a substantial amount. The problem is they have a Lucio.
Yeah, and that's just persistent heals all the time. Excuse me. But Li Ming still on the board if that's something you want to go with. The greatest poke, I think, one of the best poke heroes on this. But you kind of have this two-pronged approach. You have Illidan who wants to dive the backline. Li Ming can go in a little bit with that Calamity build, which we've seen, but you have a lot of different options with Li Ming on this battleground in particular, especially with Vala off the board. You can go some other directions. You know, we've seen Taika start to come back a little bit more, so, you know, obviously they need their support. Rhaegar seems like a likely one.
We see multiple Bruiser too with the Arcas and such. This one will be Rhaegar and Li Ming, so the Li Ming will be the pickup. So eStar going for a bit more standard. Illidan's kind of awkward here, but still it's understandable of what you would go for. Now over to BOE, you have your Tyrael, your Greymane, Lucio, and your Vala, so you have strong DPS. There are a couple of options here. You can go for a second support, maybe potentially looking for a cleanse setup and just empower that Vala completely. Or of course, you can have another warrior and just be completely harassment based. You want to be able to deal with that Illidan. I actually wouldn't mind seeing a Brightwing here. I know it sounds awkward, but it gives you the control of Illidan. You have the double heals for Lucio. There's no major way for that poke to be substantial, and you can just focus on the Immortal.
That's one way to deal with some magic damage, and if you want to deal with the poke, you have Beetles that can do that, as well as an Uberak who has that that spell armor built in, and this is the patch where he still does have dampen magic available to him that can really boost up that resistance there. So a good pickup. I was thinking maybe something like an Artanis to be able to blind Illidan when he comes in, and you deal with it that way. But I think an Uberak's not bad if you're looking to defend against a little bit of that poke. If you want to dive the back line, kind of counter that, it's basically an all-in. You have an Uberak, you have Tyrael, you have Greymane. When you go in, you're going in, and you have Lucio to basically drop the beat, get that sound barrier. And so that is an all-in dive comp if you want it. Else, Greymane still does really well in the Immortal race. So it's kind of you have a good defensive structure, you have a good offensive structure, and if you need to take a fight, you have the potential as well.
Zero just has a good pickup of that last pick there of the Anubrak of being able to position firmly in the middle as an anchor against that Li Ming, and if Illidan dives on you, you have your burrow charge away. It's actually not too scary for an Anubrak to deal with that auto attacker. Normally a ranged auto attacker like a Vala or a Tychus to a degree would burn him down to a slight amount, but Illidan, once he hits that Q button, you're like, all right, see you later, and you hit your E and you deuce out, and at the entire time your Greymane and your Vala is burning down the Immortal. So I actually look at this draft and I enjoy Zeros more than eStars. However, eStar seems to be the more established team here.
Yeah, I think eStar, skill-wise, seems to have a little bit of the edge, but draft can really, compensate for some of your deficiencies or counter a lot of what they're doing. I think Anubrak was a really good pickup, so I think that's something that we'll have to definitely keep an eye on. It's one of the few heroes that you just walk in, and it's not something you want to do every time, but it's something you can pretty much do most of the time. You can just eat Li Ming combos. So if you get into that weird defensive structure to where it's kind of on the neutral side or on your allied side, and you have to just play that poke defense, you have that available to you.
Well, for eStar 2, we didn't talk about Zarya too much. Zarya does work here for the poke. You mentioned the dive available for Zero. There is a dive available for eStar as well if they want to just throw their Muradin at somebody and just get on the back line, maybe peel out that Greymane, drop down, I would probably think of a Reverberation at level 1 just because of the Greymane and the Vala, and just slow them down enough to where maybe you can get a kill or two, get a pick, and then you burn down your own Immortal. So we'll have to see how these two teams do shake out. Overall, the drafts do look pretty solid, but I do lean towards Zero with probably a 55-45 in terms of compositions. But as you stated, man, sometimes it just comes down to skill.
Well, that Li Ming Muradin combo that we saw last game, every time that Stormbolt went out post 7, Li Ming was throwing out that combo, so that'll be something for you guys at home to watch when it comes time to Muradin throwing out those Stormbolts. And so eStar looking to take that 2-0 lead. It is a best-of-5 Trixler. They can't win out like they wish they could have in their MVP series. But on the other side, Zero Panda.
Are you ready for a crazy question? Lucio, reverse amp over sound barrier.
I kind of like it. You have the sanctification if you need that shield, that protection when you go in. You have good availability, you have disengage. So Greymane has that 4-second window to where when he goes into Worgen form, it's 4 seconds before you can disengage. Depending on what Vala build you go, if you opt to go that Q build, you have that vault that you can fall back on. So options like that are available to you.
Well, we're moving into Battlefield Eternity. Let's see how eStar will face off against Zero. eStar currently up 1-0. The Eastern Clash continues as we move into game number 2. Our team's fighting for the right to stay in the tournament and move on to Sunday to continue the competition. Here on the far right, we have Zero, and in the blue on the left side of the battleground, it's going to be eStar. Jayhow, who's going to come out ahead?
Well, we're going to find out because it will rely on X there, who we see on Illidan. That'll be somebody we really want to keep an eye out for, but I want to go back to the point you were talking about. The other heroic for Lucio, I actually really like that. I don't think it's too crazy.
I think if you look at the opposing team and you see telegraphed burst, whether it be Jaina, whether it be Kael'thas to a degree, maybe you could say, all right, we go sound barrier. But Li Ming's burst is going to be pretty quick and pretty aggressive. But dealing with Illidan, he can go for the reverse amp. But we'll see if that will be the pickup later on here. A big aggressive play in the top lane. GD will be there to deal with that, but Zero getting the better hand of the trade in the bottom left as they grab a turret.
It was either a misclick or a miscommunication. That shield ally went over on a Muradin went the other direction. So no energy, no ammo soak. So small things like that can matter, but they turn around. They're going to re-engage here in the top. It looks like we're going to have a trade here early on.
Both teams racing level 10 and grabbing the experience will allow them to do that. Savage gets the final hit there. Looks to maybe dive behind a fort, working on the well, wanting to bait GD into an unfortunate situation, but GD does not bite. Now we have that odd rotation where both teams try to set up for a lane, and we're going to have H here on the left on Murden, potentially getting picked off. The Tiger with the shield prevent that from occurring. Xing Shen will move in with the nice combo on him.
Li Ming opting to go into teleport build at level 1. So not something we see too often, but maybe want to have that preemptive teleport available just in case you see that dive coming at you. It's not available to you, so you can kind of use that as that, oh, we've got a whole bunch coming at us. I need to dip out of here. I need to make sure that's available. So that'll be there, but 1 minute 30 seconds. There's going to be our countdown for the Immortals spawning. And we'll see exactly how these teams approach this with Greymane and Vala. As you said, it's a pretty terrifying poke onto the Immortal.
Well, Anthem Walker is actually really solid against Hungry Arrow. When Hungry Arrow gets popped out and you haven't taken any damage, you can blink it and not have to deal with the pressure coming your way without having to spend mana, which is very important for Li Ming in the Immortal phase. Also, if you want to go Cannoneer build, it's actually really solid for proccing that Cannoneer. So eStar will have that choice of them at level 13. Both teams begin the race on the Immortal phase. Greymane and Vala should win this interaction, especially with the Hungry Arrow build. However, there is a relatively close fight between our two teams.
Yeah, it was a lot closer, I think, than we thought it would be, but I think, again, they will win out. Illidan just now making the rotation up, trying to soak 4, and they are going in. You know, the first Immortal, if you don't have much shield to it, although, yeah, there it goes. Zero going to take the first Immortal. And just as we expected, but eStar, they're not really giving up a lot here. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah, some pressure on the top lane. The aggressive play from Zero is relatively light just because of the idea of Illidan maybe getting to a fight where he can win. However, Savage is being a bit too aggressive in the top lane. He's going to take a poke. Will be able to dodge away to his teammate. Thankfully there, had Illidan fallen, Zero could have been much more aggressive with the aggressive play in the top lane. H now moves in, works in the W, bringing out a little bit of damage. Now, do note he did not get the Reverberation on the 1. He got the Perfect Storm instead, so looking to hit those hammers.
Going in on Zero down here is X, who, again, has a little bit lower health pool for the Warriors and allows auto attackers to really get value out of it, but he does have that spell armor. But this in the top actually took quite a bit of damage without the resources there. Zero getting a really good push in the top lane.
Yeah, they are definitely warranted to do so. All they do is be careful and not give a reset to Xing Shen, and they do give one, though, from Tyrael. Zero will be forced to walk away. We'll have the Bolt from Vala to escape, as well as Greymane retreating with the aid of Lucio, but a bit of a misplay there from Zero with their aggressive play on that port. Good news is they get it to less than a quarter health.
They do, and Zero, he's got to be a little bit careful. I love the priority to take out that well, to make sure that's going down. When it comes to those stalled out fights, sometimes having that well in your advantage. We see the team going in as Vala died elsewhere. X in a little bit of trouble. He might be the next to fall, but he uses that friend or foe in that dive to hop over to Zarya, who also supplied that shield as well. And re-engaging X, not afraid of nothing. He's going to give it to you.
You just broke me. Savage continues the aggression at the bottom. Solid reference, A+. You get a gold star. Yes, going in for the aggressive play on Lucio, but with it being a 3v2, couldn't quite get it. H comes down to help out, but there is a slight lead here for eStar. That pick on Vala was helpful. They were able to grab a full wave of experience and also grab the night pressure on the top, so they can push in that fort and force some members of Zero to come defend.
Yeah, and you know, you kind of have those shields from Zarya to allow you to not necessarily have that support, but they recognize Rhaegar was in that top lane, so we saw a little bit of aggression on Zero there. eStar without that support had to fall back, and now we have our next Immortal spawning. See how they approach it this time. A little bit probably more team fight oriented this go round.
Vala gets much stronger too here. She can work in one Hungry Arrow, Bolt, and drop in another Hungry Arrow with that level 7 talent going into her arsenal. So watch out for this poke. It just chunks these Immortals as time goes on. eStar hasn't even made a play for their own Immortal. In fact, they started Mercenaries on the left, which was a bit of a misplay because there's no real major tools to help defend against the push of Zero. Now they finally move in for the aggressive play. Tyrael's in the top left. Can he jump in and give out the shield? No. Six was a bit late on that Aldruin. In fact, he didn't even toss it out. And now Zero is paying for it as eStar definitely has taste here with Li Ming and Illidan.
Yeah, things have definitely turned. Vala, early on, you got a short cooldown timer, so we'll see exactly how aggressive they want to be as H going in to make sure and try and ward them off. But the stun there, the Impale coming in, is H going to make it out? The cleanse is there. The heals are not enough. So Muradin is going to pay. We will see them re-engage here onto their Immortal. Zero, nicely done there.
Slight mistakes from both teams. GD low on health. Where's the grenade at? Oh, he's juking. He's diving. He's dashing. He gets out. And Zarya falls. Illidan was on the Immortal the entire time, though, so we're going to have eStar get a slight lead. But if Zero gets aggressive here, they should be able to burn the opponent Immortal down by the time that Zarya gets back into the fight. eStar's X, Savage, currently trying to slow down that rotation.
Well, X is not afraid to go in as they continue to put the pressure on. Vala getting caught out. They might not be done as X continuing to go in and finds Tau. He finds GD, and there to the defense's end, but he is out of mana. They've got to be very careful with their positioning.
They gotta be. They're all grouped up on the right side. A big aura comes out. And while we were watching China versus Korea, questions popped in my mind as of why is China being so aggressive? Why do they constantly get these huge aggressive plays out of nowhere? And now I'm starting to see why. When the two best teams in the Chinese region are clashing, they just love to skirmish back and forth. And eStar will now grab a lead here as they're going to have an Immortal pushing in the bottom lane.
Yeah, and the scary thing about this trick is that they're very close to level 10. Zero is not, so they don't necessarily have that global potential that they can put in one lane and then come down soak. So this is going to be a full-on defense. The fort is a foregone conclusion. With level 10 and as aggressive as we've seen eStar so far, they might actually try and push it a little bit further than normal team would.
Well, they did put Illidan in the top lane to put pressure on that fort, so they are going to be a bit more reserved than normal. But a combo, as you mentioned earlier, from Muradin to a Stormbolt into a Li Ming combo can get the ball rolling for this team. So watch H here. He'll be the one to start it up. Wow, Tiger dropping the explosion zone. A bit of an optimistic explosion zone. Granted, you have heroics of your opponents, but maybe wait that one out a little bit next time. Regardless, the pressure continues in the bottom lane, and Keep Wall starts to fall.
Keep walls down. That minion wave will help you experience the Immortal going down. You don't want to stick around too long because level 10 won't necessarily be there off this wave, but you don't want to get caught out too far forward. There's Xingzi making use of that teleport build, and H just making sure that nobody's going to fall anywhere further than that.
Meanwhile, Illidan's in the top lane, just doing flips, killing forts, living his life up, doing what he does best, but walking around in sandals, and there he goes. He gets the fort. Savage can start retreating here. He's going to sweep and stripe it away. M can't really do much as the Nubarak, and Illidan will be happy with that trade. In fact, he stays there, continue grabbing experience. H goes in for a Stormbolt. Won't quite connect it, but Six is here for a fight. There does the Aldruin drop as they are hoping to deal with these Knights pushing in the bottom.
H going in. He recognizes his team doesn't necessarily have the follow-up. Stormbolt missing there, so they're not able to get that combo. Xingzi looking for all sorts of angles right now. Illidan not there, but Anubarak coming to join the fight. We'll see if he can get the flank. Xingzi's got to be a little bit careful as the Impale. There's the nice cleanse, but the follow-up on it. Can they get more?
Burrow charge connects. Xingzi does walk away. Ancestral healing is incredibly early, but it's very important that you don't lose your Li Ming in that aggressive play. Now, only thing used was a Locust Form. We still have Go for the Throw and Rain of Vengeance. Illidan started to make a trek down there, but after so many heroics were wasted, especially that Ancestral healing, there's no point in going into that fight if you don't have to, and he moves to the top to grab the Impalers.
Well, timing is just about here. Both teams dropping back to grab their Shaman Camp and Trick. I'm still thinking about that Illidan wearing sandals part. It threw me off, and then I realized, wait a minute, he does wear sandals while flipping. I've been thinking about it this whole time.
That's how athletic he is. I can't even run in sandals, let alone do flips. In fact, back home when I jumped on trampolines, man, I took those sandals off just to make sure that we were safe and fully athletic. Regardless, eStar will now start fighting the Immortals down here on the bottom. Illidan has joined in the fray. Now, do know, a little bit late here, but at level 10 we did get Sound Barrier instead of Reverse Amp. Saddened by it, but hey, it makes sense. Great heroic. We're going to have our trade happen. There is going to be a slight advantage for our red team here. We're going to see if they're going to try and get this popped down as the Immortals spawn once again. eStar postured very defensively.
And there's really not a lot to lock down X there as Melody C. There's the sound barrier, and now we see the dive in. Sanctification. This is the death ball we were talking about as they continue to go in. They start with one, but it's a one-for-one trade right now. They've got to find their way out, but GD continue to go in. Xing C somehow alive.
Xingqian having no mana is going to be forced to retreat, but look at this Illidan. He's pretty healthy and robust, so is Muradin, and they just chase. No mana left, no health bars, no tools for 0-1 member falls, a second falling as well, a third being poked at. Zhao being picked up at the same time. He's going to be able to dance away at wall raid his way to base, but this is now an immortal phase that can be focused down by eStar, but they're not even moving in for it. They're going to kill a keep.
Yeah, the damage that they did earlier with the Immortal, plus that camp that was pushing, now just instantly put pressure on that. So not only do they win the team fight, they won the keep. And Trick, we talked about it in the draft, is they don't necessarily have the huge poke. I mean, yes, you do, as we see maybe a re-engage there, but once you go in, you have to find a way out, or you get kills there. There was a one-for-one trade, and they had a hard time finding their way out. And when you have somebody like Illidan who's chasing you down, you do not make it out alive.
Yeah, one of the mistakes there was maybe GD just being on this roster. Remember, he is filling in. He went a little bit too far on the Li Ming after she was already out of the fight, and that allowed Illidan to be effective, and he continues to be effective. Xingqian working in those calamities, that dominance coming into full effect here. Zarya walks down, should have a shield ally soon. 6 being focused down. GD on the back right as Greyman, he just hopes to survive for now. Stormbolt does not connect, and he's actually going to be able to walk away with that stealth he picked up. But Illidan is moving on. Savage cares for no one's life as he takes another one. Flips over the wall too, doesn't quite see GD though.
Okay, so when you are Illidan and you have an ability called Evasion, it makes it a little bit easier to dive in there, plus you have that self-heal on the attack. You can do things like that. I don't recommend everybody trying that. That is a high-skill hero right there. And X making it look easy right there.
Yep, Savage showing off his Illidan. We haven't seen this Illidan play the entire weekend. It's refreshing to see, because the performances that we saw earlier, they make me not want to play Illidan. This makes me want to play Illidan. Savage can keep up with it as he's about to hit 16. He can push to the top lane. Remember, there's already catapult pressure on the bottom.
They're going for a flank here. They're going to try. They're going to try and circle around behind them. I don't think they're going to find anything, but now they're going to find themselves in a fight. They are down 16-13, down the talent here. H in the middle of it, but on the backside, Xing C taking quite a bit of damage, but here they go. They're diving in.
Big Rain of Vengeance explosions on the same time, Sanctification being used, and it does work out. Rhaegar's focused down. Illidan still hasn't been touched, so Melody C on the back right getting destroyed there. Li Ming, Xingqian hasn't taken any damage yet. Finally, he's going to fall. No, he escapes. The dominance proccing off. He's looking for more on 6. Illidan continuing to keep living in. Shield ally should be up soon. He lives with like 4 HP. At the same time, Illidan continues the aggression. J-How.
Illidan is going in and just terrorizing everybody without able to get that kill. That is 4, and now 5 members down on the side of 0, and this with Illidan, the best dive core hero in the game. Look for them to try and finish here.
That's gonna be game. Illidan already on the core, as you mentioned, 70% health. We're gonna have Tiger in the top right low. He's gonna have his shields to survive for now. Now everyone is starting to spawn for 0. And of course, we need to be slightly careful, but if Savage does play this correctly, still has Metamorphosis, this should be a core. There's the shield ally, there's the last couple of hits, and eStar will go up 2-0 in this series.
Oh my, when that game came on, that game continued. Woo! I love this China on China action.
Yeah, this China on China action has been solid. I will say I am disappointed in 0. I felt like the early game draft was great. Illidan between 1 and 10 has a hard time being completely effective because you're waiting for that Metamorphosis to break any type of hard CC, or of course get that engage. When a big powerful moment comes in, you just Metamorphosis over it. But they just spread out and said, Illidan, please kill us. And when Illidan sees someone spread out, he goes in.
It was just like... The minute they decided, all right, we're going to death ball, we go in, and they don't get the results that they're looking for, now you have a very long retreat. You don't find your way out. And you know, one of the things is when you look at Illidan comps is that you normally have somebody, anything, that says, we got to find some way to CC this. And if you look at the side of 0, they did not have that outside of something like a Nubarak, and a Nubarak was so focused on doing other things, is that they kind of fell short on taking care of Illidan. Xing C, I have no idea how he lived in that last team fight. If he goes down there, that fight looks a lot different in the sense that even if you lose a few members, you might not have the same results. somehow that guy has like 9 lives, and I don't know. I think he just used like 8 of them.
Zarya and level leads definitely work out for Xingshi there. Now, of course, looking over to the MVP, Savage will earn it there with a 4-0 and 10 KDA. Definitely deserved. And yeah, just speaking about Zero in their draft, I agree with you. If they're not going to play that composition correctly, which is burning down the Immortal, having a Nubrak be an anchor, and working together as a unit, then there's no point in picking the Nubrak. I would have gone with maybe the first pick that I mentioned, maybe a Brightwing, some kind of CC that can control that Illidan, and Brightwing does substantial control in terms of that scenario, but sadly they just lost track of the highway there a little bit. Like, all right, we have a roadmap, but they decided to jump on a boat instead, and it just completely ruined everything, and we just saw eStar take that advantage and run with it. You okay? You all right?
A roadmap, a highway, and they took a boat?
Dude, it's late at night. I just say things, man. It just falls out, man. I just vomit words at this point. So, eStar and Zero here. We are up 2-0 currently over their opponents. Great game. 4 towers destroyed to 1, 16-4, and kills. Wow, was it really 16-4? Dang.
It was all about Illidan. I mean, it was one of those things. I mean, we thought he was pretty hyper aggressive early, but I mean, he was just never really punished. I mean, they didn't have the team that could punish that. I mean, you talk about Brightwing, I mentioned Artanis. There's just so many tools that you can have to deal with Illidan, and that's one of the things is like the new meta. It's one of the reasons why we don't see a lot of Illidan is because there are so many available counters. Just even Twilight Dream Malfurion, which wasn't available, but you kind of have all these different things. You had no real hard CC to lock him down. You didn't have the blinds. You didn't have a lot of these things outside of an Uberak. It's just. And those are almost targeted CC skill shots. I mean, it was very difficult to deal with, but there's a reason he was the MVP that game, and it was due to his aggression and overall team play. I think it was, again, phenomenal for eStar.
Well, earned aggression. We'll be gearing up for game number 3 in this best-of-5 series soon, and I think this is a moment where I want to see a Chinese team play reserved, and that Chinese team, I want it to be Zero. I want to see if they can handle this type of playstyle where maybe we go for a mid to late game draft type of composition and just stop throwing lives at each other and hoping that we come out ahead, because it's been the same thing over and over again, hyper aggression, and while it's enjoyable to watch, it does put you in scenarios where you have a very hard time coming back from a match.
It's very difficult to come back from that. I mean, they tried to take that last fight 16-3. It almost worked out in the very beginning. They took down Rhaegar. It's just Illidan self-survive. I mean, it's just too much to deal with. Gosh, I mean, you're talking about trying to play reserve, play something, and I'm instantly in my mind thinking, like, we've seen so much Zagara. Please don't let that be Zagara. But we will find out, obviously, soon. It is best of 5. We still got at least one more game to go.
We've seen Abathur gameplay in the past. We've seen double support. I wouldn't mind seeing double support from Zero in particular, just because, again, and I hate to hammer on this, with them having the different compositions because of them having 2 different members on this team. If you're able to just empower GD just to be full aggressive and be comfortable, the team looks completely different than when they're having full chaotic fights, which I think is something that could really work out for them and get them on this track to maybe get a comeback against eStar. So again, with them being in a spot for they are potentially out of this tournament, it's time to pull something out like that.
Again, I don't know what it is about this setup in the studio, what you guys are doing. Yesterday, I'm up here with Trick, and he's talking about, oh, they should do an Abathur or something like that. And then, like, I look, and there's, like, a monitor right over there. I see, like, Abathur staring at me. And he's like, you got to do something weird. And then I see, like, Murky staring at me. I don't know if this studio is rigged to be like, whatever Trick says, just got to go. Producer says, yes, it is. I hate you guys.
It's our directors in the back, man. They're messing with you. They invited you to the studio to be messed with. So let's figure out our battleground. Where are we going for game number 3? Remember, the bands have already been popped out. Warhead Junction. Okay, JL, buckle in.
That's one way to make it weird, is Warhead Junction, our largest. Would we say it's the largest? I mean, it's probably the largest and one of the most complex battlegrounds in the sense that there's double bosses on there that are very spread out. You have these nukes, these warheads that spawn, and they spawn in different locations and random locations, and there's so much global pressure around it. I remember when we had the showdown, the Warhead, or the showdown back, the Machines of War showdown, that's what it was, and Dignitas showed, like, hey, let's play a bunch of globals, and, you know, we've seen some changes to when the nukes spike up. It's just a very complex battleground that if you're not prepared for it, this could be something that could work in Zero's favor.
Okay, so just because we've seen so much crazy, before we do the draft, I want to hear your crazy hero that you expect to see on this battleground.
I just said I don't want to see Zagara, but I think this is actually one of Zagara's better best if you're looking to push, but it's got to be a late draft pick if you're going to do that. You've got to make sure that you have the setup potential for it. Brightwing could be an option if you're looking to do that. Brightwing's kind of fallen off. We saw L5 use it a little while ago, but Zagara